Welcome to the second event for the Meet the Coach series from Agile 42. And today we're going to talk about team development and productivity. I've reserved a time box for 60 minutes, but I guess this will be probably 45 minutes or something like that. A few words of Agile 42 for you who doesn't know us. Agile 42 is a coaching company. Agile coaching company. We are present in 10 countries, US, Canada, and Europe, and got an office as well in South Africa. And you got some Twitter handles and profiles on the page. My name is Magnus Kollberg, and I work as an Agile coach here at Agile 42. And we're going to jump directly to, so I'm just going to stop sharing and share another thing with you. So give me a second. And we're going to do like this. See if that works. So we're not that many. So my intention today is that we try to actually use the audio. So what I will do, I will promote everyone so they're able to speak. Like, see if we can fix that. And what basically, if you would like to raise a question or have a comment or something, use the raise your hands button at the, you find it at the bottom of your Zoom. If you press that one, and then I will let you into the conversation so you're able to speak. And we'll see how that goes. Hopefully it works pretty good. If it doesn't, then we sort it out and use the question and answers instead. But I think this will work. So that's about that. So let's move on to this one, and we'll do it like this. So the first, got a couple of questions that we imposed in the invitation for this one, and it's kind of, what do we actually mean with a team? And is there a difference between a group and a team? And is there any kind of correlation between groups, teams, and productivity? And first thing I would like you to do is to help me out a bit. So if you think of a group or a team that you've been part of, which was great, and think of the characteristics that made that team great, and then you just shoot them out for me, and use the raise your hands button, and I'll kind of try to type the stuff while you're talking. So feel free to do that. Any ideas? Let's see if this works. Okay, Sophia, let me hear.
Hi, Magnus. I have an idea.
Yeah.
I think communication is very important.
So, good communication. Anyone else? Or did we have Giancarlo? Do it like that. I think you can talk.
Hello.
Hello.
For me, hello. Sorry. Maybe a shared goal is something that make a great team.
Can you repeat, what did you say once again?
A shared goal.
Ah, true. Shared goal.
And also trust between all the team members.
Trust. Awesome. Good. Anyone else got some ideas? put something in the chat. We'll see. Common goal, trust, roles and responsibilities. So let's add that as well. Response. There's supposed to be a T there. Diversity. Active listening, yes. Own goal together, yes. Own. I write it exactly as you write it. Together. Accountability. Psychological safety, it never ends. Awesome. Let's see. Feedback. Good. There's a lot of good stuff, and I think perhaps we have different also experience about working with teams. I mean, if we have never worked in a team that was really great, it's pretty hard to know what to look for. But what you have listed is all good things. So let's move this on and look a bit of how on different models on team development, and see if we can navigate on this one. Yeah, well, let's move to this first. This one first. So first, there is what's the difference between a group and a team? And if we use a bus stop as a metaphor, and think of if you think of people standing in a bus stop, they are not collaborating that much. They have all individuals' goals. They want to get on the bus. They may exchange some information just to check where's the bus going, when is it coming. They may even compete about the seats of the bus, getting on the bus. It's kind of a group. There's no collaboration. There's individual goals, and we can say that there lack synergies. You know, if we think of it like 1 + 1 is 2 in this case. So no more synergies in that. If we move on to more like a team, and then we can use, if you think of a pit stop on your Formula 1 race, they have a common goal. It's like to win the race and to do their job and collaborate as fast as possible to minimize the time the race car is in the pit stop. So, and here is synergies. People are working together towards that. They are experts in that sense that they are highly skilled on their tasks, but they still can help out a friend or a member if they run into some trouble. So there's something about this, and here you got synergies. So if we dive into synergies a bit and think of what that might be, and there is a study, I don't remember the name of the guys actually, but they talk about that synergies happens or are born in 2 occasions. It's about the shared interpretation of what to do or the goal, and also that they use contributing actions. This is where kind of the synergies are born, and this is what makes the difference between a group and a team. So a shared goal is extremely important. Otherwise, we are just individuals running around. So we will now we'll turn into some. Okay, let's see. Do you still hear me? Or if you put it like that, is the connection poor? Raise your hands. A couple. There's even more. Let's see if I can do something about that. Give me a second. I'll try to do it like this. It works. Okay, seems like it works now. If you feel like this messes up, raise your hands or write in the chat or something, and I'll try to be observant of that if this is a problem. So let's move into look at some models for team development. And I'm gonna start up with perhaps the most well-known one. Which is a model from a guy called Tuckman, Bruce Tuckman. And this is pretty old. It's from the mid-60s, 65, something like that. And he's had a linear approach to this. It's group development. The whole idea is that his assumption was that group develops in different stages, and he has 5 stages that he defined. I've just used 4 here. I'm going to tell you why shortly. But it talks about forming, storming, norming, and performing as different stages for a group of people. He got a 5th one, which is adjourning, kind of dissolving the team. But I ain't going to focus that much on that today at all, actually. And to be honest, I'm not going to focus on Tuckman either. I'm going to switch to another model. I've brought it up because it's usually pretty well known. But a bit later or more recent research is done by, see if I can bring that up. Guys over here. So let's kill Tuckman for a while. Well, he's probably dead anyway, but let's do it like that so we don't see them. And there is another woman called Susan Whelan. Unfortunately, she's dead as well. But anyway, her research is, I wrote mid-90s here, and it started at mid-90s, but her model is from 2003, I think the first paper was out. And she's built her research on Tuckman's models and other models as well. It's still the same number of phases. So she got 5 phases as well. I'm just going to talk about those first 4. And let me talk you through this, and then we can. I'm going to talk a bit about how she did the research to validate this. And the first phase she's talking about is something called dependency and inclusion, and this is kind of the first phase that people run into. And the naming of this phase is pretty descriptive. The whole thing is that members are at this stage pretty self-centered, or how to put it. You are eager to, your concern is to be accepted by the group. You're looking for safety and trust, and you're highly dependent on the leader. The leader is perceived as someone powerful. You expect them to provide this safety and trust, and also to provide the direction for the team, or for you as individual. People typically don't express their opinions that much here, and they are pretty cautious. So they are nice and calm place, but a bit anxious. And if you think of what subgroups is something that you know, a small part of people, 2-3 people in a team perhaps teams up to do something. And that rarely happens in the early stage, in this stage. And leadership also is rarely challenged at all. It's more like looked upon as someone who has the answers. And the leadership style is pretty beneficial to be directive in this case, because no one steps up. So trying to yeah, be directive, prepared for meetings, and clear. What we can do as a scrum master or coaches at this stage to help a team to go forward is actually to you know that safety and inclusion is is a really important part. So this is a good way to focus on that one, and that might be to assure that people get to know each other better. Perhaps we can use personal maps like mind maps to share with each other our interests and what we know. Another good thing is to build confidence in individuals. So provide them with training and support, both about process, but also about what they're supposed to do. Almost in all research, they stress the fact that high performance or performance measures for a team is a good thing for them to kind of develop. That fosters team development. So at this stage, I typically try to craft the first definition of done, for example, to set the performance issue regarding quality on together with the team. And that definition of done that takes place in that first session, well, it's not the it doesn't need to be that extended at all. It's just to initiate the conversations about what this is. Well, then we would like to, inevitable, the team will run into a bit more nasty phase, and to help them to do that and to start creating this a common view, it's a good idea to initiate discussions about goals. What are we here for? What is supposed to do? To try to get a shared view of that. Same way goes to how we're going to do things, what we are going to do, our values, also the leadership. So we can start kind of, in a nice way, open up for those discussions. And as I mentioned, you know, people are not that confident to express their opinions. I find it pretty useful to do this a bit anonymously at the beginning and then present it as a whole group view. Then it's not get personalized, and people can have an open discussions about that. But bad things are to happen in the majority of teams, and that is when you grow some safety in individuals, they're starting to express their opinions more, and that's where you kind of enter the counterdependency and fight stage, as Susan Wheeling talks about it. And this is as people start expressing those opinions and get a bit more secure, it starts to getting fights over goals. They don't agree over roles. Who is doing what? I'm not supposed to do that. I don't want to do that. Tasks, how are we going to do it, and what exactly we're going to do. And all of this kind of triggers some kind of conflicts here. And same goes for the leader. The leader starts becoming challenged in this. If it was looked upon as someone who is pretty powerful at the beginning, now it's more like you're starting to questioning that person. And if you're a good leader, you should understand that, okay, this is a good thing. People this is a sign of trust and confidence that builds up, and people express their opinions. So it's not a bad thing. The bad thing would be if you, as a leader in this case, you try to avoid the conflicts and try to avoid that they happen. Because if you do that, there is no way for the group to grow any further. So what do we do as coaches? Well, you can typically, I mean, a lot of this will be about conflict resolution. You can use techniques as negotiation to try to build on each other's different opinions. Bridging questions from coaching is a good approach. For example, I hear that Anna, now when you were listening to what Sophia was saying, what do you make out of that one? To try to kind of build on the opinions instead of getting the conflicts. Also, I try to have the focus on the group perspective, because what we don't want to have here is that people starting with personal attacks or insults. So that is really bad. So we really try to avoid that and keep it on the group perspective instead. And also gradually, another thing, good thing is as well is to gradually start to involve the members in different opinions and discussing different topics, especially as a leader for the group. Okay. So if we then assume that the team has this kind of conversation, they have started building their a bit more common understanding about the goals and why they actually exist in the first place and what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. You build up some even more trust, and you move on the team to something called trust and structure. One thing more that I remember, if you go back to the counter dependency in fight, a pretty good indication that you are in that stage is that you don't feel that comfortable. You actually don't want to go to the team meetings, or you feel like pretty bad of doing that. A sign for the first phase that you kind of is in this one. It's more like, if you think of it, if the leader asks a question and it gets completely quiet, it's like it's vanish in the Bermuda Triangle. It's just nothing happens. It's kind of a good sign that you're in the first stage. And second one, counter dependency in fight, well, you feel bad. That's, yeah, then you probably are around here. Trust and structure then. The person who made you kind of angry yesterday currently make you smile. That's kind of an indication that you're around this one. And here, here goals, everything is getting clearer. This goals clarity, task clarity, subgroups in this stage is more accepted. In the counter dependency in fight stage, subgroups are looked up as something which is suspicious or hostile. So here you don't like the subgroups. When trust is built up in the trust and structure phase, it's more like this is something okay. It's not a problem. And work is all the conversations within the team starts to be more around actual work compared to the previous stages, where you more discuss roles or how to do things or debate tasks or things like that. What do we have more? Yeah, if you think of the leader in this phase, in here, leaders typically perceives a loss of influence here because the teams is many of the leader roles are distributed to the team members. So team members might facilitate meetings, or they have conversations, or they have starting to have approaches to take decisions, things like that. And the leader also turn more like from the directive approach that they had at the beginning. They need to take a more like facilitator or coordination role in this stage. And if the leader doesn't, well, then there will be a collision with the team, and they will kind of rumble back to those that have behaviors for the counter dependency and fight stages. So it's extremely important that the leadership style is kind of changing along with the team development if we're going to help the team to grow in a good way. But what can we do as coaches? Well, as the goal is to actually improve the trust and structure, here I typically start working, I review the goals again. So start having that conversation once again. Also refining the definition of done, defining working agreements and team norms. Typically we do that at the beginning, but this is a good place where they actually are able to have conversation about that. It could be focusing on coding guidelines, or bring up the team board and start streamlining that one, so it's in a bit of a better shape. So this will be typically what I will be doing over here. So I'm gonna double check a thing and then we move on. Let's see. So moving to the nice place, and which is work and productivity. And here is like everything, of course, from the previous stage is even better. Here you got clarity of goals, you got a high degree of collaboration, subgroups forms and dissolves, and that's a natural part for the team. And yeah, it's kind of the things. If you look at the leader over here, and this is actually the place where it's fun to go to work. You'll actually like to go to the team meetings. You like your actual work together with your colleagues. If you look at the leadership, well, here is more like a back off situation. Perhaps a more coaching approach is better as a leader, and also to focusing on the environment and helping the individuals to grow, of course, together towards the common goal, to achieve the goal they have. As a coach, I would focus on that as well. Focus on excellence, focus on details, and encourage actually feedback mechanisms. I will probably start that out over here as well, but that will more or less be even more efficient in this and more important in the work and productivity phase. Okay, so let's see what we got. Then we have, okay, let me see. We got some questions popping up. I'll slow down and have a look. Let's pick the first one from Rita. How those stages look like in self-developing teams. The leader is not assigned. Oh, that's true. If you think of a Scrum team, for example, you can have different setups for this. Either there is a manager. In some structures, you got a manager for a team anyway, and you can have a manager for multiple teams, double but one, which could be the person that the team sees as their leader. Other places, it's the Scrum Master who could have that approach, which is seen as kind of the informal leader for the group. Typically, I usually ask the team, who do you consider to be the leader? And that depends on, sometimes they see the Scrum Master as the leader, sometimes they see their team manager as a leader, or sometimes even the product owner as a leader. But they are leading from different perspectives. So I will say it depends on the setup and what the team who the team perceives as a leader. Let's see if that helped out anyway, Rita. I'm gonna check another one from Rita. According to Susan, only 10% achieve the level S4 and most not forever, pulling back to stage 2 again. What's your experience? Well, actually, I was looking into exactly that question, and Susan Williams says that I think she has examined the last time I looked at it was like 800 groups in US, 760 or something like that. And of those 760, it was like 17% of those teams has behaviors which is kind of corresponding to the work and productivity phase. So not everybody get there. When I run those, I can continue with your question in a second, Rita. I'm first going to tell you a little bit about how Susan did her research on this one and validated it. And what she was doing is actually recording the conversation, following different groups, and recorded the conversation that the members had within the groups over time. By writing down what they were talking about over time, she could kind of map patterns of different behaviors through the development of the teams. And from those behaviors, she can see that, okay, so here they talk about a lot about dependency and inclusion questions. Here they talk about counterdependencies and fight, and so forth. What she found out was, for example, that here, those two stages, work happens, but rarely. So there's very low productivity over here, while here the productivity starts again. And another aspect of that is, I think there's a lot of things. The thing is that the teams are never in one of those stages. They have a dominance in one of the stages, but have behaviors usually in several stages at the same time. So, and there is a lot of things that can make them go back. I remember that Susan Whelan says that if a team is up in those levels, and she says that if you keep the majority of the team intact, and as long as you do that and add or remove other people to the team kind of culture will eat up the new persons and incorporate them into the team culture, and it won't be that big of an effect. There will be kind of a dip downwards in the behaviors, and then they will work them up again. Well, if that is aligned with your experience, I'll leave you to reflect on that. My personal one is perhaps that it depends also if you got strong persons coming into the team with strong opinions, but still, what I've seen is teams that works really, really good has such a strong culture that they kind of usually handles that kind of situation. So they're working out. It's not like they don't have conflicts, for example, over here. They have conflicts all the time. The only thing is that they are able to effectively manage those conflicts, which they aren't in the earlier phases. Let's see. Another question from Christian. Every time the team changes its structure, for example, adding a member or a new scrum master, etc., it will be considered a new team. If it's true, each phase could be repeated. Well, I think I perhaps answered that question. There will be impacts when you kind of do changes to the team, but there will be the higher the majority, the higher maturity the majority of the team has, the less it will be impacted. So how Susan validated this, I mentioned that she did this recording of teams. That didn't scale that much for scientific validation of it. So she has developed something called the GDQ, Group Development Questionnaire. And it's a number of questions that a team member's answers. It's like an assessment. And from those questions, they are related to the different behaviors that belongs to the different teams, phases. So that means like answering those questions, you can kind of find out where the dominance for the team is in their behaviors. And as with all those kind of models and assessments, the best is that you bring this up and then you have conversations, which is kind of the most valuable thing of it. Let's see, every time. And that perhaps answered Rita's question. Yeah, I use this GDQ questionnaire. It's a pretty good tool. It takes it don't take that much time. I think I usually give the team an hour to work through the questions, and then there is some analysis that needs to be done to that, and follow up, of course, to present the results. And then the fun work starts to what do you do about it? How are you going to continue to try to sort out those issues that have shown up? And interestingly enough, it's like teams who seems to be, might be the case that seems to be in this phase. Actually, they are in the first one because they have never had the conflicts. So then sometimes it looks like it might look like a team is over here, but actually they are kind of in the first one. And triggering questions of goals and roles usually pushes them into the red nasty place. Okay. Let's see, is there anything I can write this down? My work happens, but rarely. Then another thing perhaps worth mentioning before we move on is that some teams get stuck here. They get stuck in one of the phases, or for example, in the counter dependency in fight. And I think she said that if a team is stuck there for 12 months, they will just they need some help. You need to do something because they are not able to get out of that one. And especially if there's personal conflicts between people, that is something we try to avoid, and you should be cautious about during those conversations, to move it up from a personal level and stick it to the group perspective instead. Any other questions? Oh, Sophia, let's see.
Hi, I'm going to just ask my question.
Yes.
I see you have the timeline as well for the stages. So how long does it take for a team to come from the yellow stage to the green stage?
Okay, that's a good one. So how long does it take to go from this stage to that stage? And we can look at it from a couple of different perspectives. First, I got to mention Susan Williams' observations on that, is that she had never in her data seen any team that goes here shorter than 6 months. And I know that she had something like 800 teams in the US. I know it's like 600 Swedish or Western Europe assessments done as well with this GDQ. So 6 months would be, from her perspective, the minimum. Then you got something up to 9 or 10 months to get into this phase. But that, of course, is dependent on if things run smoothly along the way. So there's a lot of factors. Another thing we can reflect on here is perhaps you've heard of it. It's a project from Google called Aristoteles, and in that one, Google were kind of puzzled about why are some of our teams producing kind of high performing, really productive teams, and why are some other teams not performing that good. And of course, they would like all their teams to be kind of high productive. So they're pretty good they have loads of teams at Google, and they are pretty good at gathering data. So they were gathering data about age, sex, culture background, educational level, team sizes, all kinds of things. The thing that they could see a correlation to when it comes to the high performing teams was that they seem to take care of each other. So, and that is kind of what we talk about as psychological safety. Like, people in those teams are able to spot that some team members doesn't feel that well, or need some help, or need some support. And that is kind of one of the things that has risen this popularity of psychological safety. And if you connect that one to relations, I mean, that I would assume that means that you are having a pretty good relation with someone in order to both ask for help, but offer help as well. And then we can do a little experiment on this. So if you think of a group of 3 people, we got those three relations over here: 1 relation, 2 relation, 3 relation, and then we add another one over here. Oh, suddenly we got where does it go? My kind of drawer here. Sorry, here it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 relationships to maintain and to kind of grow. And if that is an important thing, we should focusing on it. So if we do it like this, the number of relations here, that will be, some of you probably good at math, but that will be something like this. That will be the number of relations depending on where n is the number of persons. So then assume that we got our, let's do it like this. R n equals 8. That gives us 28 relationships. Okay. So if we have 28 relationships to build up if this is a new group. Okay, but then we can say also that suppose I am able to work at least two relationships at the same time. That makes it so that 14 relationships, pairs. Okay, so far so good. So then, how long time does it take to build a decent relationships? It's it depends, of course, on how we look at it. I know someone, I'm a good friend of someone, I'm a best friend of someone. It's kind of different levels of those relationships. But in average, this figure is saying this, like it takes 18 to 28 days to build a good working relationship. Working shoulder by shoulder. So that means pretty close work. Okay, so then let's just to do the math. So if you take 18 times 14, we get 252 days to 392 days. I would say roughly 1 year. Of course, then this assumes that people don't know each other at all at the beginning. But that also gives a feeling that this is not a short race. It's something that takes some time to build up. Let's see if I got any questions, Christian. What do you think about the phase after performing? If you're thinking about this one, which is going over here, is that what you think? I assume that, yeah. Well, why I'm not bringing it up is more like I've spent the focus on stable kind of Scrum teams or cross-functional teams, even if it might be of course interesting to look into this as well. I have a feeling that if we are good at this and we are managing to get a team over this, and we actually have a good feeling of what we're doing, I think we can figure out what we need to do over here. But I haven't digged into this one that much. Okay, I'm gonna add a thing here to this one because we're gonna talk a bit about productivity as well, and see just if I find it over here. Give me a second. We can start up with Susan Whelan's approach on productivity, and she has a couple of things which makes it it's pretty important, or put the flashlight on it. She has, for example, she had intensive care teams, like surgeons and nurses working in intensive care teams. If those teams are on this level, they save more lives than teams that are on the other level. They have also teacher teams that work together and are on this one. They have students with better scores than grades than teacher teams on the lower level. And the same goes when it comes to productivity in business. She has the same kind of analogy over that. So there is something, this team focus is important, and not just for the fun of it. It actually helps us to be more innovative and create better stuff. But I'm gonna introduce another pair of fellows, which is called Katzenbach and Smith. And this model, they also have a development model, but I picked out their a curve that they have, which looks like this. And we got productivity, as you've seen on the y-axis over here. And what those guys are saying is that if you just put a group of people together, you get some kind of small improvement in productivity just because you start sharing some information. So you might get an increase of that one. But then after a while, you drop down to what they call valley of despair, and the productivity goes down. And then it slowly goes up as the team matures again to a high level. And they talk about this over here as a pseudo team. They talk about this as a potential team. They talk about this as a real team. And they talk about this as a high performing team. So what do we do with this picture? Well, I can think of it now. It's so popular to create those teams. For one, we can say, do we always need teams? Perhaps we are happy with just this kind of slight improvement in productivity and stick with the work group instead. Or if we are, as an organization, if you expect this high performing teams and that's what you would like to have, well, then you need to be willingness to take the investment, which is down here, in order to achieve that. Otherwise, it's just not fair. So that is typically what I usually talk about in this. And yeah, let's see. Let's move on and see what we got. Any other questions so far? The dotted line, the dotted line over here, I got a question what that is. It's just to say that here you got a group of people, and it was just a reference for this. There's nothing more like that. We got some kind of productivity here, and there you see an increase of it. Okay, I got a question. What's the name of the next stage after 7? It says real team. They talk about it, and I think that is in line. Susan Whelan says that it's not a team until you're over here in this. She just called this is team. The rest is groups. But Katzenmacher Smith talks about they have this kind of curve, and I put that upon Susan Whelan's model right now. But they talk about it. Real team occurs something here, and high performing teams over here. And you see kind of the curve flattens out here as well. And the reason for that is like here the team needs challenges, according to those guys. You need to challenge the team or they kind of go back again. Pretty much in line with the work in Susan Whelan. Let's see, another question. How much work does it take to get the team dynamics changed from group to high performing team? I mean, from a coach or a team leader. I mean, I'm still back to the time it takes to go from here to over here, plus 6 months or a year, depending on how we view it. But as a coach, if you're a Scrum Master, you have the possibility to work with a team constantly, which is you can kind of focusing on those issues, following the team along the way. If you're a coach, you perhaps aren't there as frequently, but still you can intervene. Typically you help the team at the beginning or something with the different Scrum ceremonies to get that going, or with whatever agile methodology they are trying to develop. So you intervene on, for example, you're there perhaps once a week or something, or two times a week. trying to spend some time with the team to kind of see them up, to help them here. And it will be a number of workshops. You got part of the sprint planning meeting or the different events in Scrum. You have show that the retrospective works as it should. Scrum has a lot of good things which helps the team here, and that was actually the next thing I was thinking of talking about. Let's see, I got some kind of question over here. Another one. The days mentioned are calendar days or working days. I would say it's working days. So it's actually days that the team spend together. Okay. We got another question from Karim. Can we apply this model for remote teams? Yeah, I mean, I would say I have previously, some years ago, I stuck to the Tuckman model, but I wasn't that confident because I didn't have any validated data. But even if it's so I start looking into Susan Whelan's model instead, and actually they are very, very similar. The main difference, as I see it, is that Susan Whelan has done a good job to validate that one, so how it works. So I pretty much trust this kind of model. And then the question is, how does this help us if we got I think the question was distributed teams, wasn't it? How much? Yeah, remote teams. Yes. Well, I think I changed my mind a bit, because previously I was more like, distributed teams, you're in a mess. And I still think that if you can choose about the how to build this trust, how to build good relations, the best way of doing that is to spend time together. We're able to look each other in the eyes. We can see body languages and stuff like that. And humans are pretty good to catch this up, to build your own picture of the person and the relation. And of course, if we are remote, that becomes a bit harder. Now, of course, if we have good, we got all the technology. I know we're sitting here and talking to you guys now, even if I don't see you. But if you got good bandwidth, you can, of course, create the impression that you are co-located. So by striving towards that, fix Skype links up all the time in the room, so you're able to feel like Sophia is actually sitting beside me. That, of course, helps. What I strongly recommend is that the team assures or really tries to get together from time to time, to spend time physically together. And if if you're running Scrum, for example, it could be that they meet up for the sprint planning meeting or something like that day, if that's possible. If not every time, now and then. And I think that is more important in the earlier phases. Because if you are able to build up that trust fast, that's what you would like to do. And also to get the different opinions out and get over them, then it's probably easier to have remote work over here, because then you have already created those relationships. Distributed or remote teams. Well, I was thinking about when I talked about it now, I was thinking about members where some of the members are not present. Some are sitting in some other country or somewhere. That's how I was looking at it. Okay, good. Let's see what we got here. Okay, time is running up. We're gonna move to one thing more before we close. And now I need your help here. It's like, if you think of Scrum now, what kind of things are built into Scrum that actually helps us with this? You have any ideas or any ideas? And you can chat, or you can try to be vocal. It doesn't matter. So how can Scrum help us? I can give you a clue of what I think. Retrospectives. I totally agree. This is pretty clever. I mean, Scrum has provided a session, a dedicated event where actually the team are supposed to reflect on their process and how they're doing things, which is of course a very good, and also we want everyone to be there. So it fosters kind of the collaboration and the common view of things. Exactly, we got all the other events in Scrum as well. But we got inspect and adapt. Same goes for the, of course, the daily. We got the team board. We got the sprint goal. Scrum emphasizes that we should have a sprint goal. And by emphasizing that, of course, then we need to have conversations about what we mean with this. What is it? Which kind of triggers the shared view again. Team level ownership. I write team ownership. It's a good thing as well. I'm thinking about if you know titles, we got another one. Awesome. If you think of the popular estimation method when we do planning poker, which is kind of a way to, it's not in Scrum, but still it's a kind of a practice in Agile poker. This is a way to help the decision-making process and also pulls out different views. So we got a lot of good things here. Pizza. Are you thinking about the pizza game or? Otherwise, pizza is good. We write pizza. That's always good with pizza. So Scrum has stuff within it that naturally kind of helps a team through this. But if you're going to do something to help your team, I would recommend that you have the conversation about goals. Do it at the beginning and marvel as the team starts fighting about it, and then have it again to try to get a shared view of that. So it's one of the best interventions you can do as a coach or Scrum Master. Okay, I think time's up. Thank you very much for today, and hope to see you some other day. Okay, thank you very much.